Lesson 1 for June 29 to July 5, ready for teaching on Sabbath, July 6. God Created, from the series The Least of These, Ministering to Those in Need, read today by Dr. Percy Harold. Wednesday, July 3, A Broken World. One thing God gave Adam and Eve that he didn't give anything else on earth was moral freedom. They were moral beings in ways that plants, animals, and trees could never be. God valued this moral freedom so much that he allowed the possibility that his people would choose to disobey. In doing so, he risked all that he had created for the larger goal of a relationship with his human creatures based on love and free will. But there was also a destroyer. This moral freedom existed for angels as well, one who wanted to disrupt the good and complete world God created and sought to use God's special creation on earth, human beings, to do that. Speaking through the serpent, the devil questioned the completeness and sufficiency of what God had provided. We read this in Genesis chapter 3, verses 1 to 5. Now the serpent was more cunning than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made, and he said to the woman, Has God indeed said, You shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said to the serpent, We may eat the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God has said, You shall not eat it, nor shall you touch it, lest you die. Then the serpent said to the woman, You will not surely die, for God knows that in the day you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. The primary temptation was to covet more than God had given them, to doubt the goodness of God and to rely on themselves. In that choice and that act, the relationships that were integral to the creation as God had designed it were broken. No longer did Adam and Eve enjoy the relationship with their Creator that they had been designed for, as we read in Genesis 3, 8 through 10. And they heard the sound of the Lord God walking in the garden in the cool of the day, and Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord God among the trees of the garden. Then the Lord God called to Adam and said to him, Where are you? So he said, I heard your voice in the garden, and I was afraid, because I was naked, and I hid myself. These two human beings suddenly realized that they were naked and ashamed, and their relationship with each other was almost irreparably altered. Their relationship with the rest of the earth also was strained and broken. Question. Read Genesis chapter 3, verses 16 to 19. What do these verses tell us about the changed relationships between human beings and the natural world? Genesis 3, 16 through to 19. To the woman he said, I will greatly multiply your sorrow and your conception. In pain you shall bring forth children. Your desire shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you. Then to Adam he said, Because you have heeded the voice of your wife, and have taken from the tree of which I commanded you, saying, You shall not eat of it, cursed is the ground for your sake. In toil you shall eat of it all the days of your life. Both thorns and thistles it shall bring forth for you, and you shall eat the herb of the field. In the sweat of your face you shall eat bread, till you return to the ground. For out of it you were taken, for dust you are, and to dust you shall return. Because of the reality of sin, life suddenly got a lot harder for Adam, Eve, and the rest of creation. The consequences of sin are real, particularly as they affect humanity and our relationships. In a sense, we are distant from God, our Creator. Our families also are affected in many ways, and our relationships with others are often a challenge. We even struggle in relation to the natural environment and the world in which we live. All aspects of our lives and our world show the brokenness caused by sin. But this is not how God created the world to be. The curses of Genesis 3 also come with a promise that God would make a way to recreate our world and to repair the relationship that had been broken by sin. While we continue to struggle with sin and its effect in our lives, we are called to uphold the original goodness of the world and to seek to live out in our lives the plan God has for this world. You have been listening to a reading of the Adult Sabbath School Bible Study Guide by Dr. Percy Harold from Queensland, Australia. This service is brought to you by Hope Channel, the Sabbath School Department, and Christian Services for the Blind. Remember, God is always faithful.